Good evening friends, you are most welcome to Think Guys channel. Today we are going to discuss Anthropology Simplified by Vivek Bhasne, and our topic is discuss the origin and development of anthropology or discuss history of anthropology. This question is about 15 to 20 marks. Let us begin the topic. Introduction part. Even though anthropology as a discipline of study didn't appear until 16th century, many philosophers like Herodotus, Aristotle, etc. were conducting studies of anthropological nature as early as 4th century BC. However, independent work research or any kind of study was never carried out before 9th century AD. In formal beginning of study of anthropology, anthropology had its beginning in 5th century BC. First time talking about conducting studies of anthropological nature, it was a Greek philosopher called Herodotus. Other early Greek philosophers who conducted related research were Aristotle 400 BC and Strabo in 100 BC. In this era, Roman philosophers like Lucretius made significant contribution to this field, while in AD era, Roman philosophers like Tacitus and Aquinas were significant contributors. Unsystematic beginning of study of the anthropology. Historians often claim that anthropology as a discipline originated during and due to Renaissance and systematic development of anthropology is called by colonialism. In 16th and 17th century, some scholars of sociology talked about anthropology in the wake of French Revolution. Example Herbert Spencer. The term anthropology was coined in the 16th century by German university professor. In those times, it was not studied as a different discipline but was understood to be systematic examination and observation of evolution of man as a physical and moral being. Some of the noted writers and researchers who tried to differentiate anthropology as a different discipline were Michael D. Montaigne, Jean Bodin, and Blaise Pascal, etc. Some of the noted early publications in the field of anthropology were Histoire naturelle of the French naturalist Georges and Buffon, which is an encyclopedia in which 2 out of 44 volumes have been dedicated to anthropology. Most revolutionizing work in the anthropology were written by the Charles Darwin in the form of the Voyage of the Beagle 1845 AD and Origin of Species 1859 AD. Systematic beginning of the study of anthropology as a separate discipline. In 19th century, anthropology was systematically synthesized and started as a separate branch or discipline by combining various branches of anthropology such as physical anthropology and socio-cultural anthropology by some scholars calling themselves anthropologists. However, the different branches of anthropology had begun to exist at different times right from 16th and 17th century AD. Physical anthropology, the oldest of the branches, is physical anthropology. German anthropologist Johann F. Blumenbach played instrumental role in development of physical anthropology. Socio-cultural anthropology. During 17th and 18th century, same sociologists and other scholars started talking about social anthropology. For example, Herbert Spencer and Auguste Comte. Thus, a branch of socio-cultural anthropology was started. Origin and development of anthropology, Darwinism and colonialism. Role of Darwinism. R. Merritt, a British anthropologist, remarked that anthropology is a child of Darwinism, but this judgment is refuted on following grounds. First, Darwin was himself inspired by the concept of evolution, which was in existence in some social sciences. Second, Darwin was also inspired by economist Malthus, implying that seat of anthropology was already there at the time of Darwin. Hence, anthropology was influenced by Darwinism, but it cannot be called as child of Darwinism. Second is role of colonialism. Industrial revolution in Europe was going on at that time. Consequently, Europeans were in pressing need of new markets and raw materials, which made them to move out to other areas like America, Africa and Asia. As a result of this, missionaries, travelers, administrators, etc. collected a lot of information about society, culture and physical features of the natives for the purpose of establishing colonialism. This information flooded Britain and other European countries. Various scholars studied it for their theoretical interpretation. On the basis of this information, scholars in Britain and America come out with theories of evolution of society and culture in anthropology. Thereby, systematic beginning of anthropology took place. Development of anthropology in 19th and 20th century. First academic position in anthropology was held by Edward Tylor at Oxford in 1884, almost immediately after French Bois became the first professor of anthropology in United States and at Clark University, Massachusetts. First course in general anthropology was offered in 1885 at University of Vermont. Reasons for slow development and growth of anthropology. First is lack of vision on the part of Europeans to recognize the similarities and homogeneity in physical and cultural aspect with the non-whites. Second is all remotely located societies which were not sharing the fundamental cultural values of the Europeans hardly deserved to be regarded as humans. When human diversity was accepted as natural, it opened doors for formal studies. Credit goes to European explorers, adventurers, travelers, missionaries, etc., who provided rudimentary and basic information about people inhabiting the remotest of areas. Early anthropologists like Tyler, Morgan, Spencer, Boyce, etc., were by and large armchair anthropologists who were basing their conclusions on the secondary data. Malinowski, the greatest British anthropologist of Polish origin, introduced the fieldwork in anthropology and transformed it into art and craft. During the first quarter of 20th century, when anthropology started blossoming as a full-fledged academic discipline century, sense of detachment and tradition of relative objectivity became the distinctive attributes of anthropology. During same period, scholars from natural science background got attracted into its fold. For example, Haddon was a marine geologist, Rivers was a physicist, Seligman a pathologist, Elliot Smith an anatomist, Malinowski physicist, and back home in India. N.K. Bose was a physicist and geographer. They brought with them scientific temper and objectivity, which during the later stages helped anthropology to become a mature science. Later, with the specializations, special branches such as political anthropology, legal anthropology, genetic anthropology, etc., are developing in India and world over. Next question is why anthropology? This question is about 10 marks. Let us begin the question and answer. Demand of the question is uniqueness and relevance of anthropology, which distinguishes it from other social sciences and makes its study imperative. Answer is anthropology is a systematic and scientific study of human being in totality in terms of space and time. Why anthropology? Anthropology is a synthetic science and has strong links with other social sciences and biological sciences, yet its contribution in human sphere is unique. The major issue resolved by anthropology in short span of its existence are many, which makes its study imperative. Understanding human differences. First is anthropology has clarified all myths regarding tribals being savage and barbarous people. Second, cultural relativism concept given by anthropologists expose cultural arrogance of Western societies. Third, study of human races in terms of physical and genetic features disproved myth of racism. Fourth, it also proved that physical differences between different groups are the consequences of the adaptation of each group to its environment. Second heading is understanding ourselves. First is anthropological studies prove that all behavior is learned and not inherited, which help us to understand ourselves and change our cultures accordingly. Second is anthropological perspective. Cultural relativism can be utilized for solving problems and rivalry between groups. Third heading is Applied Anthropology. Here administration utilizes services of anthropologists in policy making and administration of various areas utilizing their knowledge of cultural variation and felt need approach. Fourth heading is Action Anthropology. Here anthropologists themselves involved in planning and administering the policy of development of tribals. Here anthropologists themselves involved in planning and administering the policy of development of tribals. Fifth and the last heading is Unique Approaches of Anthropology. Unique approaches of anthropology in studying human beings like holism, participant observation, cross-cultural studies, etc. also help in holistic understanding of human being. Thus, due to holism or holistic nature of anthropology, its study become imperative. Our next question is comparative method in anthropology. This question is about 10 marks. Let us begin the question. Comparative method can be defined as the practice of equating of contemporary primitive society and non-Western society with the past and compare it with industrial society in order to trace origin and evolution of society. Proponents first is evolutionists were proponent of this comparative method. Second is E.B. Tyler and L.H. Morgan used this method to illustrate past and its usefulness for evolutionary purpose. Third is different stages of evolution can be illustrated by using this comparative method. Methodology. It includes sending questionnaire to the administrator or missionaries within whose jurisdiction particular human group under study lives. Uses. This method is used by different anthropologists to study and compare different societies and universalize their analysis regarding evolution of society and culture. This method is used to generate meaningful scientific law which can describe the behavior of people everywhere. Examples are cross-cultural survey of G.P. Murdoch, later converted into human relation area files. Criticism. Contemporary primitive societies were considered as the descendant of prehistoric society. As evolution means gradual change, how it can be assumed that these societies did not change for millions of years. Moreover, they were called survival of past relics and social fossils, which is highly derogatory. Explain anthropology is most liberating of all sciences or social sciences. This question is about 10 marks. Anthropology is the study of human in totality in terms of time and space. It is the science of man and his work. Herkovitz. Who said about that? Herkovitz. In terms of its work and relevance over the last 100 years, anthropology has consistently tried to liberate us from many fallacies and misnomers. First is it has successfully exploded the myth of social and cultural superiority and racism. Second is it puts the entire mankind on one and the same pedestal. Third is thus it helped in attaining and maintaining peace and harmony in the world, which is a prerequisite for development and progress. Right from the beginning, it has aptly performed the responsibility of informing its students about the nature of the world as we know it. Further, as Whiten and Flunter 1975 rightly point out, it has first taught its students a way of thinking about the world as we conceive of it. Second, discipline them as critical thinkers. Third is at the same time provided them with intellectual equipment enabling them to open their minds so that they can contemplate new ideas, facts and concepts. Thus anthropology also contributed to the formation of an enlightened citizenry free from narrow and parochial feeling, which in itself is a liberating phenomenon. Next question is explain anthropology not only helps us to understand genetically transmitted differences but also cultural differences. This question is about 10 marks. Let us begin the answer. Anthropology not only helps us to understand genetically transmitted differences but also cultural differences. Focus of question is cultural relativism, which helps us to understand cultural differences. Part 1, genetically transmitted differences such as ABU blood group, RH blood group, height, eye color, texture, etc., skull shape, brachycephalic and dolichocephaly, skin color, etc. Causes of genetic differences, paternity or parents. First is mutation, second isolation, third migration, fourth selection, fifth inbreeding, sixth genetic drift, seventh is genetic load, etc. Apart from knowledge of genetically transmitted differences, there are cultural differences in society such as differences in eating, clothing, and living habits, etc. These differences sometimes can lead to conflicts due to intolerance. Here comes the relevance of anthropological principle of cultural relativism, which helps us to understand cultural differences in society. Cultural relativism, it is an anthropological attitude, which means that all cultural patterns are equally valid, and hence every culture or any part thereof should be viewed in objective terms through its own problem, logic, and rationale. It implies that one should not judge others by one's own standards, for example, beef eating by non Hindus and cousin marriage by many communities such as Muslims, Christians, and tribals. Second is cultural relativism opposes ethnocentrism, which is an attitude and belief that one's own values, traditions, customs are better and correct as compared to those of other cultures. Third is features of cultural relativism. Every cultural pattern is equally valid. Analyzing the things in terms of internal consistency, logic, and relevance. Posture of neutrality tries to understand why people do this. Non judgmental appreciation of strengths and weaknesses of culture. Thus, anthropology helps us to understand not only genetic differences through its study of changes in gene frequency but also cultural differences through its study of cultural relativism and ethnocentrism. Our next question is, what is research strategy of anthropology? Discuss about it. This is about 10 to 15 mark question. Let us begin with introduction part. Anthropology is a study of human being in totality with respect to space and time. Anthropology not only deals with the evolution of human being but also studies about their culture, behavior, language, religion, and all other social and cultural activities that human beings involve themselves in. To deal with such vast and universal scope, anthropology has adopted a research strategy in terms of several approaches, namely the fieldwork approach, the holistic approach, holism, the comparative approach, the systems and processes approach, the emic and ethic approach, and the case study approach. First is fieldwork approach. Fieldwork or field research is hallmark of anthropology. Fieldwork involves first-hand observation, recording or documenting what one sees and hears. It deals with the process of collecting information about the biology, culture, and society of peoples extant or present, wherever they lived or live. It highlights collection of raw material for the use of anthropology. Second is holistic approach. It tries to understand every aspect of humankind in relation to the whole and the whole in relation to every aspect. Anthropology deals with human beings in totality, in time and space. Its subject matter includes biological anthropology, archaeological anthropology, sociocultural anthropology, and linguistic anthropology. This holistic approach had made anthropology the widest discipline as it is related to biological sciences and plethora of social sciences. This enables us to have a full understanding of the subject matter of anthropology. Comparative approach. It compares the biology, culture, and society of different peoples in order to learn how people came to be, what they are, and also learn about how the biological pattern of one people is related to the biological pattern of another people, and the culture of one of the people is related to the culture of the another people, and how the society of one people is related to the society of another people. It tries to find out those elements common to the biology, culture, or society of all peoples which are true of all humans. At the same time, where there are differences, comparative approach tries to find out the causes for these differences. This approach enables us to have a clear-cut understanding of the universal, general and particular features of human biology, culture and society of humankind. Our next heading is amic and attic approaches. It deals with the amic or the people's view and the attic or the anthropologist's view about the biology, culture and society. It tries to translate the people's view into anthropological view so as to communicate the perspective of the people in terms of the perspective of the anthropology. Thus, this approach provides completeness to the description, analysis and interpretation of the subject matter of anthropology. Case study approach. It examines in depth of biological, cultural or social aspect of an individual or family, an association, a community or a single episode. By analyzing several case studies from the same society on the same topic, one can learn much about the subject matter of anthropology. Systems and approaches or processes approach. Systems and processes approach. First is it tries to understand each aspect in terms of its major systems: morphological, anatomical, serological, genetic, respiratory, digestive, reproductive, and other systems in human biology, marriage, family, kinship, economic, political, and religious, and other systems in culture, and status, role, structural, organizational, and functional, and other systems in society. Second is the focus of attention is on the study of the nature and working of every system in relation to every other system, and ultimately gains understanding of the whole aspect. This approach reinforces the holistic understanding of the subject matter of anthropology. At the last, we will discuss the conclusion part. These research strategies makes anthropology a holistic study of human being. And our last question is explain in detail holism in anthropology or holism and atomism. Holism and atomism. It is about 10 marks. Let us discuss the introduction part. Holism implies total study while atomism means part study. Former is the approach of anthropology while later is that of other social sciences. Anthropology studies total aspect of human being to ensure generalization of human behavior. Atomism part. First is atomism. Atomism means reduction of an element into a particular thing, so it is a part study. This kind of approach has been adopted by all other social sciences except anthropology. For example, sociology is concerned with social structure of man, history with past aspect of man, etc. Thus, these social sciences study human being in piecemeal manner, which is different from the holistic approach of anthropology. Holism. It is an attempt to get whole picture and apply knowledge from many different fields to understand the human beings. Anthropology deals with human being in totality in time and space. Its subject matter includes biological anthropology, archaeological anthropology, sociocultural anthropology, and linguistic anthropology. This holistic approach had made anthropology the widest discipline as it is related to biological sciences and plethora of social sciences. Third is anthropology is not ashamed of borrowing knowledge from other disciplines, rather it takes pride in it to present a total picture of human being. Characteristics of holism. Pooling of knowledge of many different fields for understanding of humanity. Study of an area from all possible angles such as positive, negative, etc. For example, a study of joint family. Holistic study of joint family includes not only studying it from angle of family but also its political and economic ramification, impact on size of landholdings, agri practices, innovations, varying rate of fertility, socialization, etc. Relevance of holism. Holism gives overall understanding about the human society where nothing is treated in isolation. Here there is a nothing. Holism gives overall understanding about the human society where nothing is treated in isolation. It helps in better understanding of human being regarding its past, present and future. Limitations, barriers to holistic study. Explosion of knowledge, increased communication, increasing expense of subject, hence not possible to study personally everything that has to do with human being. Growing specialization, yet because of commitment to specialization, anthropologists continue to communicate with fellow anthropologists from other branches and use information gathering by others for holism. Conclusion part. This approach has made anthropology a unique discipline in comparison to other social sciences. Thank you very much.